Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel on Research Help. Today, we're going to be talking about working with scholarly articles. And if you pay attention to the video, we've got two guests here. I have a foster kitten here in my hands. She's very dark. She's all black. And then I've got my own adult cat here in the back, Stella. So if you watch my screen throughout as you're listening to everything I have to say, there's going to be lots of cuteness going on. So hello, my name is Kim Luby, and I am here because scholarly articles are tough to read, and we know this. And you can find me at Atkins Library and at kluby@uncc.edu. Our agenda for today, we're going to be talking about what scholarly articles are, what information is in them, and then finally how to read/work through one. So what are scholarly articles made of? So they tend to follow a prescribed formula, and we're going to be talking about that. So first off, if you follow the chaos of this slide and the cattail, up here on the top right here, we have some pictures of journals. So academic articles are published in academic journals. So these journals cover a wide range of topics you can see here on the up left. They talk about African literature, Islamic studies, historical geography, African affairs, epidemiology, environmental law. Basically, if there is something that exists on this planet, there are academics who are often professors who research it and they write up studies about it. These studies are published in the journals so that other academics can read that information. And one journal holds about 10 articles each and comes out multiple times a year. Hello. And on the right, rather than have all of these articles, or all these journals just kind of chaotically put on a bookshelf, we bind them into larger, colorful volumes. You can see the different ones and make it easier to read. So one of those volumes might have like 10 journals, or excuse me, not 10, maybe like 3 journals in it, depending on the size. So if we come down now over here to number 2, over here on the left, these articles and journals are now organized into databases, and the databases are owned by these companies. Some you might have heard of, like JSTOR, EBSCO, maybe ProQuest, ScienceDirect. These companies make all of these articles easily searchable and available to use online rather than having to comb through all of those journal bound volumes on the upper right. You can search for them now in the databases. What I'm trying to explain here is that while you're looking for articles, you find them in databases, but they're still part of the journal. That journal is still publishing those articles. We just don't interact with the actual journal anymore now because of these databases, and the databases tend to be subject specific. So you might have a sociology database or an engineering database that has all the sociology and engineering journals and articles within them. And then if you move on to number 3 on the bottom right, finally you find all of these through the library search box. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because if you find them through Google or through Google Scholar, you might see that paywall pop up asking you to pay like $30, $60, $80 for just one article. If you use the library search box, it asks you to log in, so you bypass all those paywalls. So if you're still on Google Scholar or on Google and you find an article that you like and you want to use and it's asking you to pay, all you need to do is copy paste that title from Google Scholar, put it into the library search box at library.uncc.edu and check and see if we have it. And if we don't have direct access to it, we can still get it for you at no cost through a program called Interlibrary Loan, where we just contact another school that has it, they photocopy and email it to us as a PDF, and then we send it directly to you as a PDF. Their email takes around 24 to 48 hours. It's really, really fast. So please never pay for an article. And I'm going to say this again, never pay for an article. You pay for them already as part of your student fees at the library. So the library can get these to you at no cost. So please, please, please never pay. I had a student last fall that I talked to that had already paid like $200 for an article. No, you will pay enough for school as it is. Please contact the library. You can just use the chat box on the bottom right. We will get you that article. We will find it. Trust me. So how are these articles made? First off, got to design your study. Most of these articles we're talking about are scientific articles, and I'll break that down in a little bit. And what they're doing is they're researching the effects of something on something else. So you have to design the study that you want to complete. And the next step that says IRB approval, if your study has to do with humans, then it has to go through another approval process through the Institutional Review Board, which is a board on your campus that double checks to make sure that you are doing ethical research, that you have the least amount of harm coming to your research subjects, that there's informed consent, and that data will be protected, all of these different aspects that are meant to protect everyone in the study. Once you have that approved, you have to complete your study. And once you've done that, you can write your article and then submit it to your journal. Once you've submitted it to the journal, it's going to go through that peer review process. And that's where other experts in your field are looking over the article to make sure that it references everything correctly. It had a good sample size. You drew accurate conclusions, just making sure that the research overall is sound. And then that might be a lot of back and forth if you need to make edits or add any information or update your analysis depending on your peer review feedback. Once you finish that, it is time to publish. And I'm explaining this process because I want you to understand how long it takes. So the study and writing portion, that can take 1 year to 5 years to longer, depending on what kind of study you're doing. Then the peer review process can also take up to a year. And then finally the publication, and that can still take a few more months. So if you have your article all ready to publish, but the journal has enough articles for the next 2 editions coming out, which will cover maybe like 4 months and another 4 months, it could be another half a year up to a year before your publication is actually available. So why is this important to know? Why am I telling you this? It's because if you're researching something that has taken place recently, she's fallen asleep in my hands, it's very likely that there aren't going to be articles on it just yet, and that you may need to find an example that's similar to yours, or a famous example, or just a more broader aspect of your topic. So an idea of this is if you're researching a hurricane or a recent natural disaster that's happened in the last 3 months, there's probably not going to be any research on it just yet, because remember we talked about how long it takes for that to come out. So that means that what you're going to need to do is find the most famous hurricane or a few famous hurricanes that there is research about. So like Andrew, Katrina, even Irma and Harvey at this point might have some more information available. And if you can't find a famous example or another example that's like yours, you might just want to broaden up to just hurricanes in general, or maybe natural disasters. All right, so why can't I find these on let me move my face down, on the open web? They are so expensive. So their main customers tend to be universities with academic libraries, and it stays within this circle. You may have a hospital system or like a law office or big businesses that can subscribe to some of those databases, but they're incredibly expensive. So imagine that one article costs 50 bucks. And then one journal, remember articles are in a journal has 10 articles, and that journal is published 4 times a year. So 50 times 10 times 4 is $2,000. And that's just for one journal for 1 year. So that journal very likely has been coming out for, decades and decades at this point. And that's so much money. So rather than subscribe to individual journals, we get them in databases because it's easier to use and we can usually get a better price. But those subscriptions to those databases with all of those journals it's so much money. It's a budget of around $1 million. For a mid-sized university like UNCC, it can be more for a larger university, less for a smaller, just kind of depends on how much money university has. So next idea, what information is in an article? First off, not enough pictures. Oh, so much better if there are more pictures. So there are 2 types of academic articles that you are likely to see. The first off is the scientific article. So these have data, research methods, statistical analysis, and they follow very specific formats, which I'm going to discuss. And these are going to be like engineering, health, sociology, anything that is classified as science. But the other type is going to be a humanities article. So these articles have a lot more text that is broken up into larger sections, like a theme, and these are used more often in history and literature fields. So I want to show you the first page of a scientific article. So I've got my article here, The Effects of Soundtrack Music on the Video Game Experience. Remember, scientific articles are often looking at the effects of one thing on something else. So the front page, they're all going to look very similar to this. It's going to have journal information, your title, your authors, the university your authors are affiliated with, that abstract that is going to give the entire summary of the article from beginning to end, and it's going to fully spoil it. It's going to tell you what was found, because the article, the way it is produced, that it knows that the reader needs to know if this is an article that they want to use in their research and not have to read the whole thing to find out. They're going to tell you at the beginning. And then that article begins underneath with your introduction, and then there's some more contact and other journal information at the bottom. So here is the front page of a humanities article. So we've got our title again, which is The American Slavery in History and Memory and the Search for Social Justice. We've got our author, we've got a quote rather than an abstract here. At the beginning of the article, footnotes underneath that give more information and context, and then the journal information. So now let's break down the main sections of a scientific article. I'm gonna move my face off the screen. So all scientific articles follow this same formula. So they're gonna start out with an abstract and an introduction. So that's gonna summarize the entire study and introduce your topic. Next up is going to be the literature review, also known as the lit review. This situates the article and the topic, this situates the topic within all of the research that has already been done on it and gives lots of background information here. This is followed by the methodology, which just talks about how it was described and completed. You're gonna get sample size, the type of analysis, etc. Your results are gonna come next, and this is either gonna be in graphs and tables or fully written out in paragraph form. This will be followed by the end of the article, which is the discussion and conclusion. They're gonna summarize everything that was done, any conclusions they felt could be drawn, discuss limitations to the study, and what more research needs to be done. And then finally, references. All academic articles are going to have references. You'll see those citations most heavily in your lit review, but you'll also see them worked in throughout the article if they're referencing any research that has already been completed on that. So let's see what that looks like now in an article. So this is the same article from before, The Effects of Soundtrack Music on the Video Game Experience. You can see that we've got the introduction with the past research, that lit review. Then we have the method, results, discussion, and references. See, all those parts of the article are right here. And this one to compare is a humanities article. So you can see that now I have highlighted in green themes. So it's talking about, literally even says themes, cross-cutting themes. Then it's got policy implications, the role of identity and group boundaries, addressing past injustices. Remember this article, this is a different article. Instead, I did the psychology, history, and social justice, concluding reflections. But it still has that reference page, that it still is going to have lots of references to situate this research within the broader research conversation. So you'll see that a humanities article is less likely to have methods, results, because they're less likely to be studies. This one is more like historical research and reporting on that research rather than a research study. So you're gonna see lots of paragraphs with big topic headings. All right, how to read and work through one. So once you're used to the formula, you can breeze right through these. So first off, why are these so hard to read? My goodness. So the main point of these articles is to present information. They're not trying to convince you to click on them. They're not trying to get you to read them. They're not going to use clickbait wording. They're not going to make you read through to the end to find out what happens. And they're also going to be really full of jargon, acronyms, and vocabulary, and talk about the research. And that can just be very tedious to read because they're expecting that the people who read them have prior knowledge in that field. They're expecting that because it's written by scholars, it's going to be read by other scholars who already have the context, the background, know what they're talking about. So they're not going to spend a lot of time explaining things. So this is the part where if you're really struggling with articles, go get some books. The books are going to give you that background, context because they're not just meant for other scholars to read. They know most scholars will be reading them, but they know other people might, so they're going to give a lot more context, more stuff for your paper that'll be easier to use, trust me. So hashtags, I am bringing this up because this is just one way that you can use to work through the articles, and it's just making notes in the margins. I'm just using hashtags because I know you have a lot of experience with them, with your various social media use and creation and just everything you've seen on social media. You're used to having hashtags and their functionality. So which sections of a scientific article are going to be the most important? So they're going to be the abstract and the introduction. Definitely want to start here. Then followed by the discussion and conclusion, because that's where it's going to tell you everything they found. And that's all you really need to read with an article. You're welcome to read the lit review to get the background. If you want to know the methods of how it was done, you can look at the methodology, same with the results. But the discussion and conclusion and the intro are going to have all the good information that you need, and followed by the references. And here is where you can find more articles that you can use in your own research. So what words should I use? So if you would like to create hashtag, I recommend using two different types. First off, opinionated, and then second, factual. So the opinionated ones are just going to be your thoughts on it, how you felt about the article. You know, was it useful? Was it boring? Was it just like, I don't understand what they're saying, this is complicated? Or just, you know, you'll have opinions. You'll start to get ideas on articles. And then followed by the factual hashtags. So these are repeated key terms you see over and over, repeated vocabulary, or just the main point or idea of the section you're reading. So what does this look like? So I've got two examples here. So over here on the left, if you're like me and you like highlighters, you tend to over highlight what you're researching or what you're reading, and then it's unusable, right? I mean, that's just blocks of yellow. You can't find anything in it without rereading all of it again. So I have an example on the right where I did hashtags, but in a Google Doc rather than writing it out by hand in the margins. So with this Google Doc, I just pulled out and highlighted the key terms and then wrote them out on the right. And by writing them as a comment, I can now quickly read through all those words that I pulled out rather than having to skim through all the extra text in the body of the article. And from this list, what you're also doing is helping you remember. So after you've read 4 articles on the same topic, you're gonna forget what article said what. So that's why having those opinionated hashtags, what you thought of that article, like this is a really good one, I'm gonna use this, or this one, I have no idea what they were talking about, forget this one, will help you remember. And then also it's gonna give you more keywords. So making that list on the margins on the right is gonna give you lots more keywords, help you come back to the sections to find what you need. And you can use those keywords through searching and find more articles related to your topic. So thanks for listening along on this video. The kitten, man, I put the kitten to sleep. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. If you have any questions, you can find me virtually at Atkins Library and at kluby@uncc.edu.